It's time to hear it from Harlan. Utah Director of Athletics Mark Harlan takes you behind the scenes with the Utes, the Pac-12 Conference, and collegiate athletics. Now, here's your host, Mike Legasholt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Coming up on the November edition of the Hear It From Harlan podcast, we'll run down the highlights of the fall sports season. Football ranked top 10 in the country with 2 games left. Cross country ranked 7th as they head to nationals this weekend. And as we move indoors, men's and women's basketball both off to undefeated starts. Lazar Stefanovic joins Mark for his one-on-one interview from the Runnin Ute squad. And in our third segment, we'll talk about Utah's NIL Town Hall meeting and dive into some topics involving the Pac-12 Conference. Mark, welcome. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mike. Always great to visit with you and get everyone caught up to speed.
Yeah, lots going on this time of the year. Let's get into it. A great season for Utah football. You know, Kyle Whittingham always says, let the season play out. And you had the loss to Florida, loss to UCLA, but here they are, Mark, ranked top 10 in the AP poll going into the game, and number 12 Oregon coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it just feels like it was yesterday we were in Gainesville, and here we are as we tape today, you know, completed with our home football season. It's remarkable how fast things have gone. And like in any sport, in any season, it takes its twists and its turns and its challenges and its opportunities. And here we are where we have been over the last few years with a hugely consequential game. As someone told me earlier today, you know, it's almost the same exact time last year, with the big difference is Oregon was coming in to Salt Lake. And here we are heading up there for a huge game, what really in essence is a semifinal Saturday, I think, for the 4 top teams in our league. You know, obviously a couple upsets. We finally had it in our league last week, but we were able to persevere, get through. The way we've responded since the UCLA game in Pasadena has really been impressive. If you look at all the data, you look at the wins, of course, but in the data, the improvement, it's just been another example of how Coach Witt brings teams along and his staff as well. And so excited for the guys to have the opportunity on national TV to play in this type of a game. It'll be a challenge. We've played in tough road games this year. We know how to handle it, and we'll be ready.
That young defense has come along, and Tavian Thomas, Mark, has had some personal issues, death in the family. Just kind of was struggling a bit, but seems to have found himself. The program stuck with him, and he came out last Saturday and was probably as good as he's ever been for the Utes last weekend.
Tavian did a great job. He's doing what he needs to do to keep himself moving forward. And that's always great to see. You know, at Utah Athletics, we care deeply about our students, and we're going to do everything we can as long as they meet us halfway, right, to succeed. And so Tavian has done that, and very proud of him. And it's just a daily journey for him to make sure he takes care of all his business. But to see him get that kind of success was great, along with many others. I mean, we had third stringers in there playing. Certainly we've had a lot of high-profile injuries this year, but the depth of the team, the kind of player development we have in the program, people step up and are ready to go, and that's been awesome to see.
Home schedule wrapped up last weekend, a 42-7 win over Stanford, and marked the Utes 6-0 at home this year, and they have sold out 76 straight games at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there's moments that you have when you're walking through the tailgate or walking through the stadium, and you just see our fans. They're always there. And I think I put out on Twitter on Sunday about rain, snow, early kickoffs, late kickoffs, you know, everything in between. But we sold out in each and every time. And, you know I say this. I think people do understand this. They help us win. I mean, look no further, for example, the USC game. I think it's not spoken enough about. When they got the ball after we scored the 2-point conversion, they jumped off sides twice. And if you recall, they had a little out pass to their running back, got down to about the 40. Now think about that. If they didn't, you know, jump off. Well, why did they jump off sides? Because you couldn't hear yourself think, much less tell the center to snap you the ball. So, you know, listen, they help us win. It's a huge part of our recruiting strategy to talk about how you get embraced here by our fans. But another remarkable year. We don't take any of it for granted. And as a few of them reminded me, hey, Mr. Harlan, when I was walking around the tailgate, we'll see you at the Florida game, which is the next home game. And, of course, I hadn't even thought about it. But we look forward to getting back in front of them next year for sure.
All right, Mark, let's move on to cross country. How about this year they've had, ranked number 7 in the country now, off the nationals in Stillwater this weekend. There's tiebreakers in cross country, Mark. You never see it hardly. I talked to Coach Kepler about this, and they've had to execute that twice now in the postseason. They tied for first at Pac-12s, lost the tiebreaker for second, then go to regionals last weekend, tied for second, won that tiebreaker to claim second outright, and now they're off the nationals this weekend.
You know, Kep has been slowly building depth, right? That's the whole thing about cross country. You can have someone incredible like Emily, who is really, probably arguably one of the best cross country runners we've ever had if you just look at the kind of year she's had. But the other incredible athletes on that team have carried us to this really exciting place. And so they take off tonight for the nationals, and we're excited to see what happens. But we got a real chance to be on the podium, if not the top of it, which a couple of years ago you wouldn't have said that. But Kep's done a great job, his staff recruiting some marvelous students. And it's just exciting to see how it's going to finish up for them.
Yeah, Emily Venter, Simone Plurd, Keela Barger already named all-region for the team this year. Volleyball, Mark, down the home stretch, we had their senior day on Sunday. You and President Randall were out there to join us for that, and they have 15 wins overall, 8 in conference play, and they're off 4 more road games the rest of the season.
Yeah, this was something Beth and I talked about in the fall, that just to finish the season on the road was going to be a real challenge. That's why I think having some momentum. Obviously, we played a tough game against Oregon on Sunday, but they're highly rated, and I thought we had some moments in that match that showed we can beat a team like that. And obviously beating Oregon State on Friday was really helpful. So, I wouldn't say they're on the edge of the tournament. I think they have to take care of some business on this road trip. I mean, everybody on the volleyball committee knows that the Pac-12 is the conference when it comes to women's volleyball. So, hoping that they get some success out there and come back and we'll get a good seeding and see what we can do in the postseason.
Okay, so 4 more matches left for them in regular season. Soccer is done. How about this, Mark? 7 ties overall, 4 in conference play, and they had so many one-goal games this year, but I thought a good year for Hideki Nakata and that crew.
Yeah, we call that a combination record, the kind on your gym locker, 6, 7, 7. It's something I've never seen before. I think when I think about it, and I've talked to Hideki a little bit about this, but it really is a tribute to him and the staff and, of course, the students. That's a mental challenge when you have that many games that are finished. And Mike, I would also say, a couple of the ties, but a couple of those losses were in the very end of the game.
Right.
In that 88th minute. So what does it tell you? Yeah, disappointing we didn't make the postseason. We knew we had a lot of new students on that team, many of whom are back for this year. They were this close. I mean, I know we're doing a podcast, but if you could see, I'm showing we were this close to having arguably one of our better seasons we've had in a long time. And these were some incredible teams that we played. So it's back to work for Hideki and his staff and the students, and they'll get into their spring season and be ready to go next fall.
All right, Mark, we are already indoors. Basketball well underway for the men and women. The men 3-0 with wins over Long Island, Cal State Bakersfield, and Idaho State. Sam Houston comes in on Thursday night, and they will face some pretty good teams next weekend in Florida and Georgia Tech, and then either Mississippi State or Marquette in that Fort Myers tip-off.
Yeah, listen, it's a lot of new, real contributing players on this roster. I really like some of the different combinations we're seeing from Craig. He calls me sometimes late nights and try to figure out what he's thinking in terms of who to play. And I love the fact that he's experimenting all these different things. I think the point of all this is there's a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And it's a deep group. It's a great group. They've worked their tails off to get the season started. I do like the fact that Sam Houston State, which, I think will probably, maybe people listen to this after, they beat Oklahoma in Norman last week. So they're obviously good. And I think we saw with Idaho State earlier in the week that they were better than what we saw last week. So we're kind of building, as you said, to get through these games and then go out east to really take on some great teams. But excited about watching these guys play. I think it's a fun brand of basketball. Appreciate the people that have come down and watched, encourage people to come and really get behind this team, just like in football. In men's and women's basketball, you can come in and make a difference for us. And so we're encouraging everyone to come down and take a look.
Okay, women's basketball entered the AP Top 25 this week. They are 3-0 as well, with wins over Idaho, Utah Valley, and Southeast Louisiana. We record the show, Mark, on Wednesday afternoon. A big game coming up on Wednesday night. Number 16 Oklahoma comes into the Huntsman.
Yeah, I was just parking, and they were getting off their bus for their shoot-around. That's a big group, Oklahoma. It was part of the back end of a home and home. We played Norman, had a tough game there last year. I know this has been circled a little bit by a lot of our returning players. Listen, how many threes did we make the other night, Mike? I mean,
it was crazy.
It just kept going. I want to say it was 17. I mean, we can shoot extremely well. Some of our new additions to a really good returning group that made that second round of the tournament last year. Pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I mean, coming down to Huntsman and watching these basketball teams is pretty fun. And our women's team never stops. It's just constant motion. Really skilled team. Tonight they'll be tested, and I know in talking to some of our students on that team, they are really, really excited. So anxious to see us play tonight.
Yeah, a little more size this year, and but man, it's a great brand of basketball, as you said. All the threes going, it's up and down. They are a fun watch. So fans, come out and support them when you get a chance this winter. All right, the Utah men's basketball program has had some outstanding foreign players in the program over the years. One of the latest is sophomore guard Lazar Stefanovic. He'll join Mark for his one-on-one interview when we come back with the Hear From Harlan podcast.
For tickets, apparel, team schedules, and more on the Utes, visit UtahUtes.com, the official website of Utah Athletics.
Well, as I always like to say, and I think I offend Mike a lot when I do this, but my favorite part of the program is when we have one of our incredible student athletes come in and talk about his or her story, about how they got here, their journey as they're here. And today we're really honored to have Lazar Stefanovic from our men's basketball team. And many of you have seen him play over the last year. It's amazing. He's already in his second year. It seems like he's been here for 5 minutes, but I've really gotten a chance to know him through the time here. And I really wanted everyone to have the opportunity to listen to him a little bit. So thank you, Lazar, for coming over today.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, I really appreciate it. And in typical student athlete, it's hard to book you because you got these things called classes and practice and all those kind of things. But let's start there with a little bit about what you're studying right now. I know you and I have talked before. You're involved in the Echo School of Business. Tell me why you're enjoying that part of it.
So yeah, that's an interesting question because back home we don't have business classes. We don't have like business school. So it's a lot different. It's something that I have never done. So I just decided to give it a shot because I think it's the business is how the world works, and it's going to tell me a lot about it. And I think it's very broad. Like after it, you can do a lot of things with it. It combines in a lot of areas. So, and at the beginning, I didn't really like it. In my first semester, I was really confused. I didn't understand professors. I didn't know what they wanted. Also, the whole system of school and classes is different than how it is in Serbia. So I need to adjust a little bit. But the second semester was a lot better. For me, I understood it more and I actually started liking it.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm enjoying it right now, actually.
Well, when I got here as athletic director almost 5 years ago now, I was really pleasantly surprised to see we had a lot of our student athletes within the Echo School of Business. I think we had something like 50, and that number's been pretty consistent. And it's so funny because that's the common theme. You know, we're not sure I want to be in business. Some, that's their focus, but then they find out about it. And that school is very cooperative, I think, really appreciating what student athletes go through. And also it's a school that's thanks to our now president, Randall, he was the dean for all those years there. They're in the top 25, which of course our athletes always appreciate being in top 25 programs. Well, let's take a step back. One of the things I really appreciate about you, there's a lot, but let's go back to your recruitment. I do think it's a fascinating story, and I will preview a little bit of why I'm so excited about people hearing this story. Is you were part of an incoming group that went through a coaching change. You know, that change was made around April, and you were part of that class, and that whole class did not, matriculate, but you didn't. You stayed the course and you came here, which means a lot to me. It meant a lot to people here at the time. But walk people through your decision making during that period.
So yeah, I committed kind of early. I think it was November, and then the coaching change happened, and I honestly wasn't sure what to do. I had to deal with them. I was talking to them. They were explaining everything to me. The one thing that stand out for me is how much I like this program, how much I like the conference we play in, the level where it is, because I wanted to play high level,
right.
And I wanted to go somewhere where I feel I have opportunity to play. And the big thing for me was where can I go now that I can improve the most in this next few years, where I can when I'm still young, I'm not gonna make a lot of money, but it doesn't matter. It's just how much can I improve so I'm ready to go play pro one day. That was where my mentality was. And this is a great school for it. This is a great conference. So when the coach change happened, I was just like, I don't like. It got me for a second. Like I was a little stressed.
A lot of anxiety.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, what's gonna happen now?
Well, are they still gonna want me? Am I gonna still want them? Right?
Exactly. Like who's gonna come in there? They're gonna want me. Like how's it gonna feel like? And so I just decided not to think about it, not to read a single thing about it, what's happening until they hire a new coach. I was like, I'm not gonna worry about it. Like everything's gonna work itself out. So I don't want to stress about it. So I just continued playing in Serbia, and I was just kind of waiting to see what's happening. I tried not to read too much stuff, but you can't run away from it.
Sure.
But when the new coach came, I just couldn't wait to talk to him. And actually, his assistant, Coach Peterson, that's now at South Dakota State, right?
Yes.
He actually called me first and had a little conversation with him, and he told me the whole staff wants to talk to you. I was like, sure, let's schedule a Zoom call, and we had a Zoom call, and it was like hour and a half Zoom call.
Because Craig gets going now, right? Let's just, this is a safe space right now. I don't think Craig knows how to even get on a podcast, so let's just call it what it is. You probably didn't get a word in edgewise for about 30 minutes, but you probably saw his passion and his desire. PD did a great job, as you said, picking up the baton. And from that moment on, you were fired up and ready to go.
Oh, I was so ready to go. I was so happy that I wanted. Like the biggest thing with this school is whoever was there, like it seemed to me like they really wanted me. They respected me. They like.
That's what you were looking for.
Yeah, they see some value in me, and that they made me really happy. So yeah, I was ready to go. I was very excited. I couldn't wait to get there, start working out because I've never been to States before. For coming last
I was going to ask you that. This was your first trip.
Yeah, that was.
Now, I want everyone to think about that for a minute. People get stressed out when they come from St. George to go to school here, right? Or Vegas or whatever. You're coming all the way from Serbia. And now you're going to meet these new people that you didn't meet during the recruiting process.
The crazy thing is that we back home don't really watch NCAA basketball. It's not really followed. Maybe March Madness, but that's about it.
Right.
So I never imagined myself playing college basketball in my life before I came here. Even when I was thinking about it like a few months before I signed an NLI national letters. Yeah. Yep. I was thinking like I was having offers from some schools, but I'm like, there's no way this is gonna happen. Like I never imagined this. I never watched any games. There's no way I'm gonna leave like 6,000 miles plus away from home and play when I'm like 18, 19. Like I could not imagine it. Like,
wow, that's okay. So then you get here, right? So you go through that, you get here, and if I recall, you got here. Remind me, you got here a little bit later in the summer, right?
It was August.
That's
16th,
late for college basketball for people to know, even though we don't start games until beginning of November. That's late. So the team had already been working out for 10 plus weeks. So you got to deal with that too. You got a team that's been working out, right, for 10 weeks. Those first couple of weeks had to be hard.
Well, I know the first. So when they got first 7 days, and this is not about basketball. No, the first 7 days I came in
trying to find out where to go to get something to eat.
Well, tell me about it. I landed. I was so tired. One of the coaches took me to I think Subway. We got sandwiches. And I was like, I just got to go to a hotel. I got to go to my room. Like, I got to sleep. And the time difference is 8 hours. It's my first time being in the time zone like that big. And I fall asleep, and I wake up in 2 a.m, and I cannot go back to sleep. And it's like I'm super tired. My eyes are closing, but I cannot sleep.
Yes.
And I called, it was Kern. I called Kern in like 7 a.m. I'm like, please come pick me up. I can't be in here anymore.
I got to get out and do something.
Yeah, I got to do something. Like I was in that room like from 2 to 7 and like awake in my bed. It's completely dark. I don't know what to do.
You're thinking, what have I done and where am I'm at? Well, then you got the code to get in and work out, and then it all just started for you.
Yeah, like I had to do so many different things the first 7 days. I felt like I would like be in my room like 10 in the night and wake up 7 a.m. and go out and do stuff. And, like I had to meet everybody, and like it was just a ton of things. I was so busy. I have no idea what was happening. Yeah. I think that helped me about that transition because that first month and two, like they say, it's usually the hardest. But for me, I didn't notice it.
Because you were just going.
Because I was everywhere. I was just all over the place, and I couldn't like think about I couldn't spend time like, oh, I miss my family, or I miss.
You just didn't have time.
I just didn't have time,
because you were rolling right into classes that started in August,
Exactly.
plus basketball going on. Well, then what happened? So you jump into school. We talked about that, and then you got into the season, and then you finished the year on the all-freshman team for the league. So obviously, whatever you were doing to transition, I mean, I could go through. We all remember games that you had last year. That right here, it's written for my notes, but I remember the 18 points against number 9 UCLA, which is, I'm sure, one team that you've heard of out there in Serbia, obviously with their brand. You had multiple games like that. A remarkable freshman year. Did you have fun?
Yes, a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I was actually. Coach Smith gave us some papers actually at the beginning of last year, and he was like, "There's a bunch of questions, and one of them was like, what was the time when you were the happiest, and like when was it? What was it like? What caused it?" And I was like, "Right now." Like I've never had so much fun in my life, playing with the group of guys, like enjoying so much, get to know everybody, like work with everybody. It's so much different, and the whole process is a challenge. A big challenge, and I loved it. You have to learn, like kind of like how do you say that? Like there's no time for you to learn.
Right. You just got to do.
You just got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to do. And now I think the good news is you got to go home to Serbia. You got to have some vacation time with your family, and that's something that we. Just off topic that I keep an eye on are so many of our foreign athletes don't necessarily get the opportunity. Luckily, the NCAA has been a little bit better helping out for those that don't have means. And then, of course, year before COVID, a lot of them didn't go home for, 2 years. You got to go home, take a deep breath, and it's like, oh, guess what I've been doing while I've been gone? You know, all the things we just talked about. You get back here in the fall. Now you're on a regular schedule. You went through the whole summer workouts with the team, got some new faces. So let's start talking about this year's team and the journey you guys are on, how you're feeling about it with not only the returners, of which there's quite a few, but the new guys as well. So how are you feeling about this year's team?
I'm very excited for the team this year. I think we're a lot different in a lot of ways, a lot of aspects. I think we're a lot more physical. We got bigger guys, bigger bodies. I think the guys that came in are like a lot more physical. The guys that stayed did a good job in the weight room. Getting better that way. I think the big thing about it is that we kept our core. The guys that know the values, that kind of like know the culture that we're trying to build, that they can translate it to the new guys that came in.
Right.
And the new guys are all the guys that wanted to learn and they wanted to get better, and so it just clicked kind of right away, pretty much. Some guys took more time than the others to adapt, depending on what system they played in.
Right.
But everybody, it seemed like everybody's on the same page the whole way through. Like as soon as we got all together, we started working out. We were all on the same page. We know what we wanted. We know what our goal is, and it's been really, really fun to work with this group of guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying the word fun, because that's what I've noticed. And I'm not going to suggest last year's team didn't have fun, but there was some great moments winning the tournament in Florida. But then we got in the league and we had to fight through some things in the league, and we just had injury after injury. I don't know, it was just one of those things. This year we've seen a few guys have some injuries. Luckily, knock on wood, you've been able to navigate that. So we haven't seen the full complement of the team yet, but the first 3 games we've seen from you guys have been a lot of people playing, which I think spreads the joy around a little bit and also holds everyone accountable. But after 3 games, we're heading into Game 4 tomorrow against a good Sam Houston State team. I'm sure you've already studied them on film. And then it picks up even more when we go back to Florida. So right now, after 3 games, about where you thought we were, are we going to see a lot more upside in your opinion? How are you thinking about it?
I think we're going to see a lot more good things, because we just started playing like this. This team is like, okay, it was close scrimmage in 3 games. That's right. 4 games that this team played together.
Right.
So we're still getting to know each other, our roles and what we can do. I mean, mostly we know what each guy can do. They kind of like fit in it in those 40 minutes where everybody can contribute, and everybody can have a certain role. We still need to get to know each other in that way a little bit better, but I think it's going to be a lot better from this point on. We'll have better opponents as well, so it's going to be a bigger challenge, which will put you on a higher standard just by itself. So I think it's going to be a good year for us. I think the team, the big thing this year with the team is consistency. If we're able to play consistent, if we're able to, because I know it's different back home. You have a few good teams, and then you have teams that are really bad, and however you play, you're going to win that game by 20, 30.
Right.
So you can have an off week. But here you can't have an off week. You can't allow that to yourself. So you gotta be ready to go every single day. You gotta be and that's where it starts. The practice starts so early in the summer, because you gotta be able to be consistent. And coaches they want to see who can be consistent every day and bring it on every single day, because that's what's expected from you when the season starts. You play twice. Now we play 3 times a week. We're going to play 2 times a week when the conference starts.
Right.
And every team is a good team. So
that's absolutely true. And, it's funny. I fans that have come that I've talked to the first 3 games have really noticed the skill level, the improvement of the skill level, the joy, the teamwork. And I guess we can close on this. You're talking to our fans right now. And I always tell our fans, you can help us win. We see it in football when the other team jumps offside because you can't hear. You and I were trying to talk at a football game, I think, when we had a recruit, and it's just so loud. But in basketball, it's even more so. The fans, the students. So this is your chance to tell the fans what it means when they're on their feet. They're on their feet when you guys are making a run. What kind of juice does that give you?
It's unbelievable feeling. It's it just adrenaline starts flowing through our body. It's an unbelievable amount of happiness, of joy, of excitement. I think it brings a crazy amount of energy to the team, and I think it confuses the opponents a lot. So it's something that can help us unbelievably, and that we are all wishing for. We want to see the Pac gym. And I know it takes a lot. We gotta win. We gotta win games. We gotta make fans come and want to watch us, want to enjoy basketball. That's something we're trying to do. Play the basketball that's fun to watch, that people love to see. People are gonna, and when the thing is like that, people are gonna start talking about it, and it's gonna be more and more people like, oh, they're playing.
I totally agree, and I would add to it that the climb is a part of the journey. The climb to get to that tournament is a part of the journey. I appreciate all our fans that are coming and watching that journey. It's easy to come when you're at the mountaintop, right? You can just take a fancy elevator and you can be there. But this is a chance to be in the climb with us. And just, I'm particularly enthusiastic about this team and the work you guys have put in to get to this point, the start that we've had. So I just encourage people to come out and watch the climb. And appreciate you for being here today, because I think we got to get you back to class. I'm told by our academic staff that I'm not allowed to pull people out of classes to do the podcast. It seems a little unreasonable, but maybe it's appropriate. So we got to get you to class. You probably got practice. I know the women are playing tonight, so you guys will be practicing in the gym, and then you guys will take the stage tomorrow. But Lazar, thank you for everything you've done. Your pure class. You always have a smile on your face, including right now. I don't know if you've had a down day. If you do, you probably figure out a way because you're going so fast to manage it. But really appreciate you. Keep it up.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
Follow the Utes on social media by searching for Utah Athletics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And welcome back to the show. And Mark, great conversation with Lazar Stefanovic. Excited to see what he'll do in his second year with the Runnin Utes.
He's a great young man, and as we talked about, I've always had such great appreciation for the fact that he was in Europe when the coaching change went down, and I just really appreciate his sticking with us and coming to Salt Lake and beginning his freshman year last year, and to watch his growth has been really fun. I just really wanted our folks to hear from him and hear his story, and he's just a fun one to keep track of for sure.
All right, Mark, let's move on to some other topics. First of all, the graduation success rate is out, 93% this year once again. That was released on Tuesday, 5th straight year of 93% or higher, and I never get tired of talking about it. I mean, with all the numbers out there in terms of records and accomplishments, but these people are here to graduate, and now we're doing it at a high level once again this past year.
Well, we're never going to stop bragging about this because it speaks to the incredible work our students do, the incredible work our academic counseling team does, our learning specialists, our coaches who go recruit students that have the North Star firmly understood, which is, like you say, graduate. But the fact that we're, continue to be in the top 5 of all Power 5 schools and graduating our students, to see our teams that are extremely successful also at the same time have a high GSR, the fact that football is at 90%, and competing at such a level. So again, I know our investors, Crimson Club members, season ticket holders, they expect that we can do all things great, and this is another example of that. So very proud of our students, and I get competitive too. When I see 93, I want 95. I guess Stanford came in at 96, so we got to catch those guys. But we'll continue to do everything we can to make sure our students finish what they came here for.
Well, Mark, you and I have talked a lot about NIL the last year and a half as that became a possibility to have athletes earn money on their name, image, and likeness, and some great strides over the summer with Gavin Van Weyner now taking more of a full-time role with that. And he's organized a town hall that will take place on Thursday this week at the Football Center Auditorium. We'll have around 8 to 100 people in attendance from donors, people in business, and I know we'll have some athletes and coaches stop by and talk, and that should be a fun event to really educate people on the NIL process.
Well, like you said, we have done some staff reorganization to really focus on NIL. The last edict we got from the NCAA made things a tad bit clear to know how far we can go into advertising the possibilities and the opportunities, I should say, for our student athletes. So the town hall is just another example, and we're going to do more. So obviously people hearing this and want to get involved, we'll do another one, I think, right after the first of the year. We just want everyone to know how to get involved. There's many people that want to help, and many people have. We're just about to $2 million in overall investment in NIL and cash and trade over all our teams. There's not a team that's not participating, and every student has their path through the Lasan Center, through our partnership, all the way through meeting with folks to do deals. I really appreciate a lot of corporations stepping up and talking to my colleagues in the Pac-12. We seem to have a higher mix of corporate involvement, which shouldn't surprise us, right? The Utes are a big deal in town, and I'm sure many of folks listening have seen a lot more commercials of late. The old line did a commercial recently on our football team. We've certainly seen Clark Phillips commercial running on game day. Certainly Cam has done some things, but we're also seeing our gymnasts and other athletes. Under Armour came to us about a month ago. They wanted to get our athletes involved, which was great. We had been talking to them about that, and they did a whole big show with our students. And so it's growing. Now, Mike, as this continues to go forward, I mean, I do think $2 million today needs to be a lot more going forward. And so the town halls, the other communication and education we'll be doing is to make it as clear as we can on how people can get involved, and also with our students, making sure we educate them as they get involved. But I'd say we're probably in the third hole in the Pac-12 and overall NIL investments. We want to be the best, and we're going to continue to strive to do so.
I think the national narrative, there's been a lot of attention on the high-end deals, but really at Utah, there are those. But I was amazed when I talked to Gavin Van Weyner, is how many team-wide deals, how many group deals there are. You've got players wide across our football team, other sports that are earning some pretty good money through this.
Yeah, they're earning money. They're learning about brand management. They're learning more about time management, right? And our coaches are doing a great job to make sure, because, Mike, we just finished talking about a 93% graduation rate, which is our expectations. So we got to make sure they learn about time management, and of course they are. I've also been very pleased with how many renewal deals have come in. Remember, we flipped the calendar into year 2 this last July, so it shows that the investment is paying off. But to your point, it's many students. You're going to see certain students on commercials. We knew that, but the large part of this is students that are maybe not as name recognizable, but they're also earning, which of course this has been a long time coming. So again, a lot of work to do, but pleased with where we're at.
All right, Mark, as we turn to the Pac-12 Conference, a lot of conversation about the league since USC and UCLA announced on June 30th they were leaving for the Big Ten Conference. The University of California Board of Regents could still possibly block UCLA's move to the Big Ten. That's still a very fluid situation, so we will just table that for this show and pick it up another time. But what we do know is that the conference is in the middle of negotiating its next round of media rights, and how that turns out could potentially impact the remaining 10 staying together as a conference, maybe expansion. What can you tell us about those things?
As it relates to where we're at on things, we are in the open market for our television deal, a new deal would start in the fall of 24. So we have one more full year next year with both LA schools under our current media deal. Pleased with the response in the open market on the briefings we get. We'll have more briefings, I think, later in the week. And then the hope is we can get some finalization and know where we're going to stand and how many years our new deal. Once we kind of have that number, we'll go back and look at other schools, as we've talked about before in the podcast, that might make sense to join the Pac-12. Or does it make sense to go forward as 10? I do think we're getting to a place in time where we're going to have some resolution. And if I go back and look at all my notes, it kind of said it was going to be right around December, and it looks like it's kind of heading in that direction.
Okay, we'll have more from you on that, hopefully in December when we do our next show, but certainly a lot of moving parts at the current state. You know, Mark, another story out there pertaining to the Pac-12 and the college football playoff is it's set to go to 12 teams for the 2026 season, but I know FBS commissioners are attempting to solve some logistical issues that are complicated, as they tend to be in things like this, to get this done to 12 teams by either 2024 or 2025. I know the Washington State president, Kirk Schultz, represents the Pac-12 on the CFP board meetings. Anything you can share with us that maybe he shared with you a few weeks ago?
Well, so what do we know? The decision was made. So the playoff is definitively expanding in the 26th season. That's happening. The work that's really going on now is to see if we can move the needle back and try to get going in 24, which we're very supportive of, we being the conference. I was on a subset of ADs from the Power Five and a few other places that met to look at all of the logistics of this, including going on campus, which is what we want to do in 26. So how does that work? We don't have we have an incumbent television partner, ESPN and ABC, obviously Disney Networks during that period, but then you got the NFL. That means you got to play during the week. Well, guess what? A lot of schools have finals that week, and how do you host? I mean, these are things that maybe aren't sexy to read about in the paper, but you got to figure all that stuff out. And there's also how do the contract bowls fit into this expanded playoff in 24. There's one in there that's particularly important to our conference in the Big Ten, and that's the Rose Bowl. And we probably can get into that in the next podcast. But at the end of the day, the Rose Bowl is just trying to keep once every 3 years a traditional matchup between the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And they rightly know that in that year, they're not going to get the champion of both leagues, because data shows that the champion, plus maybe even one down, will be in this new expanded playoff. So they'd get a little bit lower, but they still want to do that. And that's kind of complicated in all the setup. So those are the discussions. I think all of this will be resolved. I'd be surprised if we didn't start in 24. And I think there'll be some resolution as well on that. And then, Mike, the last thing I'll say on this, I did look back a little bit. I'm sure our fans that follow football extremely close would do that. If you look right now, as we tape this, we're 10. Mm-hmm. If you look at the last 2 years, take COVID out, we would have been in the expanded playoffs. So we would be in the playoffs for 3 of the last 4 if you take out COVID.
Yeah.
Of course, the season hasn't ended. And I just stop and think, think about that guy I told you, I'll see you in Florida. What if that same guy says when I'm walking through in a couple of years, I'll see you at the playoff game in Rice-Eccles in a couple of weeks. Can you imagine that?
Oh, my goodness.
Having a playoff game in Rice-Eccles. So those are the goals. That's why we're going to keep on doing what we do and support football all we can. But we'll get these things resolved, and I think it's going to be a great change for college football.
All right, Mark, busy time of the year. Thanks for coming by. Let's go get some wins in football and basketball. What do you say?
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate you.
All right, that will do it for this edition of the Here from Harlan podcast. Thanks to Matt Sanchez for his technical assistance, and thanks to Lazar Stefanovic for dropping by. For Mark Harlan, I'm Mike Lagerschultz. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been the Hear It From Harlan podcast. Subscribe and listen all year long as we keep you up to date on the Utes, the Pac-12 Conference, and collegiate athletics.